right. Hell yeah. This has been a long time in the making. I'm Rusty Kelly. This is the Breathing Problem Productions podcast. I'm with my close friend. I've known Charlie since I was 14 years old. We've known each other through thick and thin, and I'd been trying to do this forever. But, you know, I'm a weirdo. Life's weird. But we finally got it to happen. So I think we're going to just kind of be loose about this. Like, I just wanted to get into talking about life and music. It's funny to think about because I was thinking about how you interviewed Total Abuse for Maximum Rock and Roll in like 2007 or something. And I don't know, I just remember you had to literally get everyone in a room and like interview us.
That was very funny, and I don't think it was published for
like 2-3 years. No, it was like 2011 when it was published, which is also funny to think about.
I do think somebody had to go back in there and make some edits, and then
yeah. Maybe talk a tiny little bit closer to this thing.
Yeah, actually, can you turn me down?
Yeah.
Just in the monitor.
Oh yeah, here. So you've got this guy. You're number 2. So like.
Oh, and this is just the monitor. Doesn't affect the.
Yeah.
What's in there? Okay.
So you can mess. I think that should work. I don't know. Is it?
Let me see. Hello. Okay, good. I want to hear myself just not like
as insane.
Maxed out.
Yeah, I like NPR level.
Yeah.
I'm like living.
Maybe I'll get in the groove though. I'm already turning it back up.
Yeah. See. Yeah. What were you saying? Something about that interview?
Oh, the interview. I don't know. It was a funny interview from olden times.
Yeah.
More irreverent than would be today.
It was just mainly just funny to think about.
I think we lied and said it was at a Bennigan's. I don't know where we actually.
Oh yeah, we had like a fun almost like it was a Vice article like
or like
original.
Big Brother or something.
Yeah. I guess that's probably the better matchup. So we met. I think I'm from Austin. Charlie was originally from Houston, and we met, I believe, because you had a friend named Stuart who ran a label called Friends Forever Records.
Friends Forever Records. Big shout out Stuart Anderson.
That had put out a record/demo by this project that we both love called Die Emperor Die.
Die Emperor Die. Still holds up.
And it's like emo. It's like mid-90s emo that, anyway, I think is like one of the best of like the, whatever you want to call it. Later, the end of emo. But I remember Stuart asked a band I was in called I Shoot Lightning. That was like a literal like locust like
3-inch CD kind of.
Yeah, 3-inch CD. Like we wore costumes. We all wore pink skirts. Anyway,
I still have a T-shirt.
Yeah. But we played some kind of like, it was like a hardcore matinee
at the Southmore House.
Or it was like
the Southmore House, and I think Doug Hart's band played as well. The Raw Bras, maybe.
That was I might have been a different show because the Bras used to play with us all the I Shoot Lightning, but it was like I remember it was some kind of like art art, you know, that was like an art space that was open to the like street almost. I don't know, whatever. But anyway, there was like nobody there, which is like par for the course of that era. Because I like the idea, like we're gonna do hardcore matinees, like it's like New York City.
CBGB's.
Yeah. Like there's gonna be 200 kids.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the L to no.
Yeah, it was
nobody's fucking there.
Yeah. But I remember meeting you, talking to you on AIM afterwards.
AIM for sure.
And just whatever, goofing off. But I also remember that you were like you were a voracious poster on the Houston Hardcore board.
The Houston Hardcore.
You were like
board.
infamous, right?
Absolutely. I think to this day I still. So this is a message board in the old fashioned, like the kind that only had one page and it would go like a BBS system. Yeah. And it was a black and purple thing, and I was like I was a very contentious little, I wanted to say don't say.
How old were you? I mean,
I was like 12,
right.
13, and I was like cracking on people for saying gay and stuff.
Yeah.
It was really,
you were PC.
I was.
You were woke.
I was. And I was like, I would go at all these people. And then, here's a funny story from that is I remember some of your friends, some of the Philly people call me Steak Knife because there's a story where I think it was either the first Pride Kills show or the first Your Mistake show, and those are two cool Houston hardcore bands. But at one of those, it was in Missouri City Park, Missouri City suburb of Houston where Zero is from. We'd go out there, and the day before though, somebody had said, "I'm gonna kill you. Like I'm gonna fucking kill you."
Because of the message board.
Because of the message
you would talk
board.
shit.
Yeah, and this was, but again, like I said, it's not. You don't even have accounts. You just type your name. So it was an anonymous threat. But I was like, okay, and I put a steak knife, and I had this like Barbie vintage Barbie, like a metal lunchbox that was my mom's.
Oh shit! And
so I put a steak knife in that, and I just took it to the shop.
Whoa!
And I was like,
that's like a weird like club kid vibe, though.
Right.
And didn't have to use it, obviously.
No, I didn't.
Did you learn like a lesson of like, people are gonna do shit?
Right, but I think at that point it felt like it was boiling over. Like I was like, I'd made so many people mad that
I can remember literally reading your threads. Like I was an Austin person reading a Houston hardcore board, and seeing people literally lose it at you. And but I'm sure also there's plenty of people that know you because of that.
Or yeah, absolutely. And there were people. People like that I can name a litany of people that like stood up for me even though they were on not my side. They were like, okay, this kid's a good element.
Yeah.
Cliff, Gabe, these people that these people that were always like, I was probably saying shit to them too, but they had the perspective, right? To be like, oh no, this is kind of a cool thing. This kid's like stirring shit up. Yeah. They dug it kind of. Which I respect a lot more now because I can get annoyed by some younger person probably.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of cool that some people had a positive perspective on it.
And then I also remember you, by the way, saying like you were super mad you could go to a 7 Angels 7 Plagues show that your dad. Side note,
that's completely true.
You were like freaking out, like
because I didn't have a curfew until I was like 15, and so I was like literally just, and I was straight edge. It's not like I was crazy, but I was like gonna go to the show. And I was like gonna just stay till the end of the show on this week, and I was gonna stay over at a friend's house because that was the rule.
Right.
And I had a friend named Brian whose dad owns the Ritz strip clubs in Houston.
Oh, nice.
Brian, I love this guy, and so I would go stay at his house, and that actually, this is a good moment. We would watch True Romance, like, and he had his sister Amy would wear these Typo Negative shirts.
Whoa.
It was a cool family. His dad would go get kolaches. It's a Texas, maybe I don't know. And I that's where I really fell in love with True Romance, because we would go watch that coming home from a show.
That's a great like post-show movie.
Yes, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I guess it's interesting. I think we started talking, and at some point, because I was at that point, I would go to Houston. I would take the Greyhound from Austin to Houston and hang out with mutual friends that we had. I can remember, I assume you're like, if you come to Austin, you can just sleep over at my house.
Totally.
I remember your dad picking me up in some kind of sports car. I don't know what he had.
It was a Porsche, but then it was converted into a roof, an RUF, which is just
like its own thing?
Its own thing.
Like a custom, like,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
So Greg picks you, because you can't sit like 3 people in it, so he picks you up and he's...
No, it was crazy, because I remember being like, I've never been in a car that is this close to the, like, street.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was just like, hey, how you doing? You're friends with my son? Yeah. And then just like, and that was it.
The downtown streets of Houston. And I think that's funny because I've had your stepdad, Mark, drive me to the Greyhound in his little
like
old, more vintage.
Yeah, he made like, my stepdad was into like, what are they fucking called? Like muscle? Hot rods. He would make his own. So you're just like in an awkward situation
totally
of having
with your friends, like,
nothing to say to the person. Like, so how you doing? You going to school tomorrow?
Right.
And so I think, but one thing you were mentioning before we started recording is that we were both, we were friends because of hardcore, but we were both into different shit. Like we both really liked mid-90s emo, when it was kind of something that you were into one thing or the other in a vague way.
Right.
And you were also, I don't know, I feel like I would go to your house, you had an insane record collection. Like your dad lived in like a kind of like a townhouse.
That's because we lived with this woman that he had married and that I would call an evil witch.
So it was like you were in this room.
Tiny little room, but it was stacked up.
Yeah, it was, I have literally a mental picture of it. Like, you had a giant bed, at least to me, it was pretty big, and it basically took up the whole room. There was a huge IKEA thing of records.
Expedite,
yeah. And then a giant... And then you had a TV. It seemed big, but maybe
I think it was big for then.
Yeah. I liked, you're smaller. Things seem bigger, but it was big.
I had like a '90s bachelor dad.
Yeah.
That was just like, he would get a big TV and then he'd be like, okay.
Yeah, totally.
This is, this speaks to my privilege, I guess, in some way. But I had a fucked up life in other ways.
Yeah.
But sure, we had a. But I think it was funny. I still live like that, like all these things crammed. Anyways.
Yeah, and like I can, I just remember mainly not. Like, we were both kind of kids. Like, my mom was probably a little more hands-on, where it was just kind of like, do your thing, at least when you're with your friends. And
right.
I can remember ordering pizza, hang out, but one thing I do remember immediately seeing is you had told me that you had just been to like a thing where Miyazaki, like the anime film guy.
This is true. So I have two funny Miyazaki Ghibli related stories. I feel like I got it laid out.
Yeah, do it.
And in fact, I'm going to do the other one first.
Okay.
Do you remember the other one?
No, I don't know.
The other one where so there was this incredible movie theater in Houston called Greenway Plaza, and it was on my way walking home from school from Lamar, and it was like underground basically, literally. And it was like, and you had to go through a parking garage, and then it's like kind of like this weird dead mall. It was so cool, and it was like the art house one, and I liked it. I never went to River Oaks so I wasn't even sad when that shit happened. And one time I think you and I tried to go see a movie there, and I got refused because I was not 17.
Oh yeah, that's insane.
But anyways, Greenway, I go see Princess Mononoke, and my dad and I are in huge. Our relationship is predicated on going to see the movies, and maybe like Astros, but so he, even if he's not interested in a movie, we would just, it's like, why not, right? And so Princess Mononoke was having its theatrical run there, but the American movie guys were tabling out in the hallway.
Oh shit!
And so I go in, I watch the entire movie, and I'm like, where the fuck is Greg? What the fuck is this guy doing?
Right.
And I go out, and he chatted with him the entire movie. And my dad,
so your dad was hanging out with the two American
movies guys, and American movie guys, and the movie hadn't come out yet. They were like tabling in advance for it.
Whoa.
Or it hadn't come out.
Right.
On a theatrical run, and my Greg still's not seen that movie, and I'm like, you're crazy. It's so good.
But he had like been able to be like, hey, my son's seeing a cartoon. You want to chill, kind of thing.
Right.
Like,
and then the other one was, I met Hayao Miyazaki at a Spirited Away, essentially a premiere kind of thing, stateside premiere, maybe a premiere of the dub,
like a promo thing,
right? And it was at Pixar in California. I went with Greg's friend Peter, and Peter was like, kind of a genius guy, and I don't know if this was like part of the deal or if he hustled it up, but I got to go, ask Hayao Miyazaki two questions through his translator.
Whoa.
Yep. And I only remember one of the two, and neither of them were profound. I was just like a fucking dork.
Yeah.
And I was also shock and awe filled the crowd. I liked Evangelion as well.
Right. And
so I had noticed in the ending credits for Evangelion, at some point, it credited, Gainax,
right.
Credited Miyazaki for something, a special thank you, and I asked about his involvement, and I think so. His answer was through translator, but it was I think he was like very, also shocking, but he was very humble, and I think he was just like, it was an animation help out, like I helped them with it, which is even cooler if Hayao Miyazaki's working on the nitty gritty of it.
Of like, we'll do some kind of like. Maybe I'll lend some animators to you guys or some weird thing like that.
Or I think even personally.
Whoa, that's sick.
I was impressed by that.
Gee. And then did you get a picture with? I feel like there's a picture.
There's a picture. I have a picture. Yep. And I haven't. I wish I knew where it was, but it was very cool. We're out on this little balcony at Pixar, and Cliff Clavin was there because I think he did the voice in some Ghibli English dubs, and so, but that tripped me out because as a kid I was also into Cheers,
right?
And so I was like, holy,
it was like double.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's interesting is like we love music and movies, and result, no shock there that people who like art like all that stuff. But it's I think we bonded in some way over like both of my dad died when I was young, your mom died, and our parents are, I love my mom, they're just characters.
I love my dad
I think
too, but they're both characters. Yeah,
and I think we bonded over just, I don't know, having interesting, childhoods that I think we didn't even have to really talk about that deeply. It was just like, hey, we get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think we've talked about that the least. I mean, I know all the facts of yours. I think you know all the facts of mine. But I think, like, it comes up the least between us because we are so like in tune about it.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I think, being kids that are, like, voraciously interested, even before we met each other, in art and music and, I don't know, there's just like this thing where it's like, I'm the kind of person that, like, when I went to camp, I would just talk to people like, did you know this blah, 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 like, album or this book, blah, blah, and people would be like, shut up, Rusty. What? Like, the counselors would be like, what are you talking? Because I'm like, maybe it's like an autistic thing,
right.
Where I would just bring up facts that I knew. And
I'm to this day unable to resist that.
Where you just want to share something that you love with people.
Absolutely.
And I think that was interesting. It was like completely, our language was just like connected as to like, when we hang out with each other, it's just like boom, boom, boom.
Every time. And so I guess we don't know how old we are. I'm trying to think. So
I'm 34.
And probably 14? Is that what we think?
Yeah, because you're 88, I'm 87.
We've probably known each other, is that 20?
Yeah, what, since 2000, let's say 3? Yeah, that's almost 20 years.
Close to 20.
Yeah, it's insane. I think it's just interesting also, like, we're always going to show. I mean, I can remember hanging out with you, just talking about, like, just thinking of all the different. It wasn't just, we were into hardcore emo or whatever. I can remember like being in a car with you, listening to like Manas the Bastard, and then like DJ Screw or whatever.
Right? Yeah, because I had a tape deck in my first car, and I only had it for a few months because I had to take about 6 or 7 years off driving.
Yeah.
Again, I was a straight edge youth. I was just piss poor at driving. Nobody taught me.
Well, yeah, and it was like, okay, you got into some crashes and then it's over. It wasn't like your dad was like, let's figure this out. Okay.
But I got in like 5 accidents in 3 months.
Okay, well,
nobody took me to the library and was like, this is how you drive, and I didn't even have to pass a test. I just took this class.
I actually had to. Yeah.
And it was like a slacker thing. This, our guy that would give us our driving hours would show up, not show up.
Oh, right.
And so I'd only driven for 1 hour when I had a car.
Oh my god.
In my whole life. So, but anyways, I had this tape deck, and I remember listening. I would go, this sounds like, this sounds like I'm just making it up to sound cool, but the first thing I did when I got a car was I would go to the places that my friends would give me rides to, which would be like maybe go out to Vinyl Edge when it was out in the suburbs, but also go to the Screw store.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go like once a week and just buy 3 tapes. I left tapes in people's cars.
Right.
I really, and now that kills me because I don't think I have any of them.
Right.
But
well, I mean, I think that says also something to like, sorry, we're gonna have to talk about like what it is to have to look through. I think we were the first digital kid generation of being able to download and look up music, but still having to look for music in a kind of archaeological way of finding bands.
And I'll say, I'll say the Screw thing at that point. YouTube was not it yet, so it was, you really had to, and it was fucking cool. I mean, you could still go buy a tape at $10 a pop, and I mean tape, not CD, until the year I moved away in 2006 when I moved to Austin. That you could still, and so I mean, I would get, whatever little money I could, and Sound Exchange was obviously even more the thing, but Screw was a big part of that car. But I remember listening to a lot of, I liked Manas the Bastard DIY CD.
Yeah.
That was one, and then I remember Shoo Shoo was something I liked at that moment and still do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that there was some like. At
the time, also, I think it's interesting in Houston and Austin, I don't know. No one else is going to talk about this. I think it's interesting because I really love the emo music, and I kind of wished I had, been around in the mid-90s.
We wish we were at the, we wish we were in the library, just like...
We were around for, like, the Blood Brothers, the end of the San Diego SAS era for, like...
Which I was not into Blood Brothers, but you
were.
That was a market. I was not into SAS as much.
Yeah, you won that round. But, like, I think it's interesting how also at the time, Houston had a thing called Hands Up Houston that was, like, basically it's like a booking collective, essentially, right?
That's true, and I'll say, speaking to the '90s emo thing that we were both into, is Bucky at Soundwaves, was this guy who anyone from Houston will know this guy, this guy really had dead stock Mohinder records that I still own,
right,
and all kinds of stuff like that, where it was a very cool resource, and he I'm going in there asking for whatever, and he really kind of set you on the right track.
Same for me even, too.
Right.
People would even say, you got to talk to this dude, right, Bucky, because he'll be stoked if you mention this band, and he'll tell you what else to listen to.
And, and it was priced appropriately. We're talking about dead stock Mohinder or like Seisha, and it's $3.
Yeah,
that's some cool shit to do and to show to a kid. Because I think Still Life was the band that I first knew about from 90s emo, and in fact... 2001 was, I think, when I got my first record player.
Whoa!
And the first thing I did was Madness. I bought in Houston on Westheimer, bought the record player, still have it, and then there was a record store just kind of right around same street, and I got a Snapcase record and a Jets Brazil record, but really those were just holdovers because I had ordered. Still Life, Madness in the Gackle.
Oh, sick.
From Very Distro or whatever, and I was like, oh my god. So that was the reason I bought a record player.
Yeah.
Still Life.
It's interesting to think at the time we were into really to me it was always lots of talk about discovering weird side bands, but the era of Houston that was even in Austin it was it's just interesting thing about underground music. It was essentially what I would call indie people.
I named one person from Hands Up Houston, but there also one was the guy, Mr. Walker, who wrote the Houston rap books,
right,
and all that, and he was in a great band called Port Vale,
right,
it's just so it was these guys, but that was an entire era. I would go see 2 or 3 nights a week. I would go to these shows because they were all ages mostly. I guess they were mostly all ages.
Yeah,
but I would go see. Things I didn't even quite know the whole history of,
right.
Dirty 3.
Right.
And I would go see this band and be bowled over. I'd be like, oh my god.
Right.
This is really amazing. I go out and, it's just this instrumental thing and they're going crazy. And I'm like, they really, I have to thank all the people, especially in Houston, that, the indie culture back then, I just wish that I felt like that about music now. I wish.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It felt like there was a vibe of even though we weren't around for 90s hardcore punk, there was this DIY vibe that was people were totally devoted. They truly cared.
Absolutely.
And even if some of the bands I was a snob about or didn't know, it was we're going to try to make every show cheap and all ages. And I think it's weirder to say that we saw the end of that.
We did.
Where finally people were fuck it, whatever. We'll just promote the giant bands that are being that are the way indie became a much bigger.
I guess indie became un-indie, and that's
you just became a booking company that dealt with maybe smaller bands.
I mean, I guess whatever the pair. I'm not going to try to say their name. Sorry, Timmy. Parakeet Courts or whatever are on Obama's playlist. It's a...
No, Parquet Courts is on Obama's playlist. And no hate on them or anything.
Yeah, not at all. But it was I think there was this cool era from... I mean, I started going to shows. I think the first show I ever went to, I think, was in 1999.
Uh-huh.
And... it might have been 2000, but I think it was 99. It was Agnostic Front, Straight Faced.
Mm-hmm.
And, the first, I'd seen Kiss.
Right.
But this was the I'd seen Nugent. This was the first time I went to a true show, and I think it was the only hardcore show that my Greg went with me to.
Oh, weird.
And he was, we were walking out of it. It was at Fitzgerald's in Houston, now canceled and maybe shut down. But he was like, that was all right. I'm never doing that again. Yeah. He was, and so it was funny. He took me to one show after that.
Right.
And it was a From Bottom to Ashes show.
Yeah.
At a stageless, VFW type thing in Houston we called The Lodge. And
what did he do? Just chill.
And this was Willow, who now is like a pit master in Houston. I think very successful in what he does. Unfortunately, I still have not had his barbecue. I'm dying to.
Yeah.
But Willow had this thing, Hate Tank, and it was we'd book hardcore shows, and so it was From Bottom to Ashes, and it was a band called Black Child Avatar, who later became Sincerely Yours, and they were from Victoria, Texas.
Oh wow!
And it was the first time I saw Corpse Paint live.
Oh shit!
And they were a very cool band. So, but From Bottom to Ashes plays, right? And the point of this was that, basically I got dropped off and I didn't have a ride home.
Oh shit!
So I'm like, I think it's 2001. I'm 13 and I have to get a ride home. Mm-hmm. I have no other way. And so I'm just like, okay. It taught me something about social skills.
Right.
I was like, okay, I've got all these kids are older, or they're not kids, and
right.
I have to like find my way home.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that day and whatever.
Is that where you met Wade? Or is that the story of Wade?
So I met Wade at the first Fall Core, which is an annual Houston hardcore festival, which Willow also is the creator of, and it was the first one. It was Just Short of Living, which featured Nate Grace of Pure X.
Yeah. And Far From Breaking.
Far From Breaking. And Grace and the Grackles, also featuring Wade.
Right.
And then and Far From Breaking played, and I'm sure Will Live and all these bands. And I was just like a corny little, I'm 12 or 13. I think I was 13.
Yeah.
And I was outside of Fitzgerald's, and I think I was just like high-fiving. I think I just high-fived it. Like on some, I'm sure I was X'd up, everything. And from then, he was like, a great friend to me, and very cool. Kind of a great hardcore story. We're like, okay, I'm 13.
Right.
I'm fucking little chump. High five, and then not that many years later, one of my best friends were in a band.
Right. Which, we're not going to name the band because we love black metal too much, but Charlie and Wade did an amazing project together. You can probably figure out, but
for sure,
whatever.
And that's a really funny, crazy thing. I love to talk about every aspect of it.
Yeah, we can fast forward to that.
Sure, we can talk about this because it's a very cool idea that I basically forced the issue. I was like, I'm the black metal freak. I'm gonna make this happen, right?
Right.
And it's kind of like when he's drunk, he'll kind of say yes-ish. And it was like a Saturday.
This is like 2009,
2008 or 9. It came out in 9.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm always bringing it up, and finally he relents, and I have to also, but he's like, I'm not playing bass or something. He has some requirement, and I'm like, so I have to go fetch
Ryfoss.
and so fetch him, and we go down.
So did RF only play guitar?
He played a little guitar and a little bass on that first one.
Okay. And Wade played lots of drums too?
And he played all the drums,
right.
And then he played like half the guitar. Sometimes he'd take it away from him. But it was so basically it's this thing. I'm essentially out in the woods like with Flint, and I'm making this fire
You're making
happen.
People that do not want to do a black
I rode my bike over to like
RF
other guy's house, and I think I had to bang on his window.
You did. You told me you had to literally wake him up and be like, "Get the fuck out here, get your guitar."
It's like a party era, and I had to like wake him up, and and again I rode my bike over, so I had to convince him to drive down to South Ass Austin, and then Wade also was waking up, and Wade's wife Claire was there also, and I maintain to this day that, I'm sure everyone listening to this has heard someone do a vocal take because you don't get to hear the music. You just hear the... And I maintain that Claire's never looked at me the same way.
Where she was just like,
okay.
Yeah. That's crazy that you also were doing that while a person's like significant other's chilling, because that adds some shit stress, on by the way.
Yeah. Thankfully, I get so in my zone, but so we go over there, we do that,
and you were like also compose, like you would like tell like Ryan to like be like repeat this, almost like a maestro kind of thing,
right? So we can give a little bit more away here. Is that I think the first song on the first tape is like 9 minutes long or something. And that was because that they gave me we had 3 parts to the song, right? And it was kind of like tell us when to switch.
Right.
So it was all up to me, and I'm just standing in the corner like, and they're looking at me both like, I mean, you know, Wade's drum stamina is not there yet, and everyone's looking at me like, all right, come on. And I was like, nope. We're going to keep going. And so that's why that song's so fucking long.
Wait, and this wasn't like a practice space? Is that where?
No, this was really at
your house.
Wade spot? Lived with this guy named Pete Truth, who was in a band called Finer Truth from Houston. Early 2000s, kind of hardcore band. But shout out Pete Truth. But so it was just in the house where, like, you know, Claire's watching like on demand in the living room, and I'm howling about whatever. And so after that happened, you know, I showed it, you know, it came out, and he was like, okay.
This is actually good.
Right, and he was like, you know,
I'll take it
it's got to be just you and me now.
Yeah.
But
I don't think Ryan is too worried about that. Right.
You know, he was like, it's got to be just us, but let's do it. And so without getting too sappy, and this will be a nice place to just wrap it up, we can talk about whatever, but it was so cool because our next 2 things, which were our last things mostly, were, you know, it was like if you told your friend you wanted to do something and they just materialized it in front of you.
The best version
He played, you know, every instrument on it. He's the best guitarist I've ever known.
Right.
And then, you know, but he's also loves to drum because he's so fucking silly. Like, we do have one song, and it's, you know, his entire stipulation was that he drum and Jared play guitar, his brother Jared. So just... you know, an obstinate fucking around.
Hell yeah.
You know, and
that's amazing.
Right, but I want to say it's just the dream of it all for me was like, okay, he wanted me to prove that I could do it, and then once I did that, he was like, okay, I will make this all work. I'll do all the things you can.
Totally.
And then so I mean, and we can also talk about our thing.
Well, yeah, and then I think at the same time we can actually name the band Country Club, which is you, me, and Sean Dean. Shout out Sean Dean. And that, I mean, honestly, that was similarly because you were bugging me like, Rusty, we got to do like a PE project.
You know, so I'm not gonna say. So I had already been into noise
100%,
but not in, you know, it was again, I think we were talking about this earlier, but it wasn't in a substantive way. It was like I experienced it through like Man is the Bastard, Sissy Spacek. I experienced it through like, you know, like
Wolf Eyes Yellow Swan, with like
which
indie adjacent. Actually.
Which I just liked the idea of, but it didn't fully click.
Yeah.
And so it was for when you showed me like Grey Wolves, Sutcliffe Eugen.
Yeah, like Genocide Organ. Yeah, Sodality was a huge one for you.
That was probably the number one, and probably is my number one.
Yeah. Oh, and, yeah.
And to this day is when someone says I'm not into noise. You know, when I used to entertain people in my home.
Yeah,
you know, when I used to like actually want to hang out with people, I would be like, I'll just play this shit. And,
yeah.
Because, you know, you can really watch someone's face change, and you're like,
Well, I think what was interesting, though, is, and we talked about this in the little zine interview we did for the box set we just released, that at the time, noise was very, like, Harsh Noise Wall was like a breakout huge thing,
which is cool.
Yeah. Rita and Cherry Point and Mania, Von Meer, there was a whole thing going on. This is like 2006, 2007, but we actually did this in 2008, 2009. But like, I think Power Electronics was kind of being reintroduced and talked about in the little noise niche. But I think what's interesting is that you were like, we got to do a project that's more like 90s heavy electronics, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it, you know, we should do it about Ruby Ridge.
I mean, and I would say, a cool thing about our first country club foray was that it was like very much conceptual. Like it was, it was like, I think the idea was there more than the music even.
Well, right, and there you go. That's fucking power electronics for you. I would say in some ways power electronics, without getting too pretentious, is like conceptual noise.
Absolutely, it matters greatly what your context is, right. Because I'm not even gonna fucking check it out if that's not there.
Right, and I think that's.
And I don't think, and that doesn't mean that the music matters less. It's just that part has to be there. But that part has to be there for anything for me. But
100%. Oh yeah, and I think I can remember you giving me this documentary done by the BBC. John Ronson created it. He's one of my favorite journalists. Shout out to that guy. He's not listening, but shout out.
No, cool. I didn't even know.
He did this documentary about the Ruby Ridge incident and interviewed like all the major players that he could, and it's just full of like empathy. I think needless to say, it's not about whether this guy agrees with X politics or this or that. You can just
for me, I think one of my problems with people is that they just can't see things from the other side. So this guy Randy Weaver, right? He moves up to the mountains with his family. His neighbors are militia guys. They're white supremacists.
Yeah.
But they approach Randy Weaver. It's the ATF that sieges the place, but it's probably the FBI that approaches him.
Right.
And they essentially want him to just be a snitch on his neighbors.
And he wasn't into that. Was the thing. He didn't want to be part of the white supremacist group.
He talked to his neighbors.
Right.
But yeah, his
he
family
didn't agree fully.
They literally just had their own shit going on.
Yeah.
I'm not saying. I'm sure it was weird. I'm sure they were Pentecostal, something weird. I'm sure they were in.
But that says a lot that he was like, no, I didn't want to like vibe with these dudes.
And to me, that's just I'm sorry, I'm a no snitch person, and that's an unequivocal rule for me. Yeah. And I'll put that.
It's also getting
in blood. You 100%. Cannot. It's just not a thing you do, and so he says no, and also. The fuck you're gonna approach a guy who moved to Wyoming,
right, to get away from bullshit, and then let's be honest, you're gonna become involved in like whenever you have to like like do some weird deposition, people are gonna want to kill you. It's just like a whole can of worms
for your own family's safety. There's and also just your principled.
Yes,
fuck you,
for sure. That too, 100%.
And so what they got him on was a failure to go to court
because it was a gun charge. I think he cut his shotgun.
And even the gun charge. I think that might have been installed off right, and which is the most commonplace. But a failure to appear,
right?
A failure to appear. I've had a lot of failures to appear.
And then so, his family gets fucking murdered and killed.
His wife was killed, his son was killed, dog was killed.
Yeah,
as the song goes, and so anyways, I don't know if we need all of that, but
No, I think it
was a great inspiration to me, and not in any kind of like I was just like,
it's a human story about.
You really feel like your home is like the sacred place, right?
Right, and I think also just like fuck the cops, fuck the feds.
And their direction to the feds was, they're likely armed, so shoot first.
Right.
No shit.
Yeah.
Wyoming militia hill.
Yeah.
Where all so. You just authorized it, and this is not my own, rogue opinion. The government paid money, millions to this family.
Yeah.
And obviously I don't, with respect to any related ideology, I think it's great the country club did other things like,
we did the move
bombing, which is not to say I'm, I just think I think country club is a anti-government.
Yeah. I think it's about, I think if you look at all the pieces of the trilogy or whatever you want to call it, it's about like humanness, empathy, and fuck
totally.
Fuck the feds, fuck the government.
Totally. Because I don't know. I'm the most. I think country club occupies this strange space of, are we pro-American, or do we just embrace the fact that we are American, which is what I feel like. We embrace the fact that this is what our reality is.
Right, and Sean's the third person who's not there. There's multiple perspectives, I think, and meaning like, I think that, needless to say, we take this all really seriously, and to me, it's like, and we talked about this in the interview, it's like, maybe there's, it's about like the idea of, you know, America could be a place that you could essentially disappear and do your own thing at its best.
That is the best version,
and that isn't what these people were able to have. And without getting too bogged down, we took this project very seriously.
But here's the happier part of it. Okay, I remember I had just moved to Austin in like 2006.
Yeah.
I was living with Hans Zimmerman, and Sean had moved here recently.
Right.
And so when I moved here, you know, I was about to go to UT, but I was, you know, I had made all these friends here, including the most, and then also, you know, through him, Rusty, and so I was just excited to be here. But Sean moved here, and he was into the same kind of crazy music that we were.
Yeah, he loved noise and black metal. Yeah,
neo-folk, black metal, all this, and so we're all getting along with that. And then Rusty and I, so I approached Rusty with this idea, blah blah blah, that I just went on about for, you know, too long, and then we, you know, we decided Sean had to be involved, and Sean was in some very cool hardcore bands.
Yes.
Most notably Cold Sweat. I mean, I mean most notably because, you know, that was probably the only one up to that point.
Yeah, it was.
Besides one called HIV,
right,
which I also released.
The demo of it, yeah.
Or re-released with all. So that HIV is Sex Vid minus Judd plus Sean.
Right.
And that's a great tape.
Yeah.
I bet you could get on Discogs for like $5. Get that. But I was. We both agreed, right? We were like, we need fucking Sean in this, and I just have these really great memories of like.
Well, yeah, even before Country Club, I remember your first house with Sean. Me and your
Hans,
first house with Hans. Me, you, and Sean hung out and talked about theoretical like noise projects we could do, and we just talked about, I think, like Hospital Productions and Bonal and all kinds of bands, and it was just cool because it was like, it felt like at the time, you know, there was very few people that were into that, and anyway, it's just cool. But one thing I wanted to say about making Country Club is I can remember it was, I think, New Year's Eve 2008 or something, and you were like, Rusty, you promised me that we would make this project, and I was like, okay, yeah, and I was like, I think we're all gonna party in a couple hours. You're still straight edge, so it's like whatever, you know. Not that you didn't like the party, but like.
Well, let me clarify. I was a straight edge party.
Yes, you were, but you were like, "Yo, you promised this thing," and I was like, okay. And the first track that's on Pigs Unscathed was made. I remember like getting a synth and sitting with you and just being like
some Rush job where I'm forcing the issue. I'm
just like pumping it out, and it's one of my favorite tracks with the sample. And then, you know, we just kept moving forward. Although, and I can say this as a person who loves how music's made, the My Clan of Pack of Wolves track, I had gotten too tired because I was being a baby and other reasons of people. I was like, I gotta go home, I gotta leave. Right. And you and Sean, I think, worked on, which I think is one of the best tracks we have ever done that I had nothing part of. Side note,
I think it's one of our best too. But
and Sean, I think, came up with like the loop kind of thing.
He does that, but you know, we didn't even loop it. Obviously, it was
he played it live, like a synth part.
Yeah, it was just he really did that the pitch whole thing all live, and was also, and he did that crazy ghoulish screaming in the back.
But it's like used almost like instrumentally.
Totally. And again, we're talking at that point. We're talking to like 25 people worldwide, but I do think that's a really cool song. I think.
I love it. No, and I feel like, you know, a testament to just being like, you know, in the band that you're in, you're like, oh, I'm lucky I can say I'm a part of this project. You know, that kind
and
of
again,
vibe.
That's how I feel about, you know, my band with Wade, where it was like, oh my God, you know, I can't even believe I'm here for this.
Well, right.
You know, I would really, but I feel the same way about Country Club, and especially if you think about live. Without any disservice to you or me, I think Sean is
insane. He's the front man totally
of all time.
No, I mean, as a person who's a singer in a band, I love it when I can like kind of be the guy in the background, you know, who's like,
right.
You know, I'm just saying, it's just interesting. Also, like as a side note, doing noise, like I don't know how to play guitar, I don't know how to play bass. I can like sing, but but like it's always cool to be able to be the guy that like is kind of like backing things up. Side note.
Yeah, I really liked when we played
New York.
Yeah, and I really felt like you were like my rap DJ. You know, it was a good.
I was like trying to help.
Yeah.
Balance everything for everyone.
It was really good. I really thought you rocked it.
Oh, thank you, my friend. Okay, I think, one thing that'd be cool to talk about is like movies and films.
Okay, yeah. Rusty and I like movies a lot.
And I think one thing that's interesting is we have many tastes that overlap, but I'm also kind of the guy that forced Charlie and Royce to see was it Last Days in Houston. Yeah. And our friend Royce, shout out to Royce.
Oh, we love Royce.
Amazing human being. Like I forced them to go to this movie that's not good. I mean,
Gus
Van Sant.
The only good part about this fucking movie is that for some fucking reason, and big shout out Gus Van Sant, who I really, I'm not my favorite guy, but there's that whole Boyz II Men video.
Shot. Or just, if people don't know,
it's like who's in it? Sonic Youth people.
Well, we're right, and then whatever. But it's just funny, because if you don't know the movie, there's just a part where like a minimalist close-up of a TV, and they just play the entire, it's not End of the...
It's either End of the Road or I'll Make Love to You.
Right, and I think it's I'll Make Love to You, and it just zooms in on the video, and I remember Charlie and Royce being like, "Things. At least there was one point of like a break."
We perked up. We were like, "All right, got some." Right. And by the way, tie this shit back together. That was at Greenway Plaza where Greg fucked around with the American Movie guys.
And I just remember feeling like, man, my friends are good friends to not be like, get the fuck up, Rusty. We're getting the fuck out of here.
Bullshit. Yeah. When I saw Kurt's ghost ascend on the steeple, I was like, oh my.
Yeah. It's just brutal. God. So like, but I've been always kind of into some pretentious artsy films, good films, bad films.
But let me say, and again, sorry to interrupt, but no. Rusty turned me on to so many movies that I just. And what I think he's about to say, and I'll let him say, is that sometimes I'm into nicer kind of
you have your own vibe.
Films, right? And Rusty was always into, kind of like, we're both into transgressive culture, if that is a thing. But, you would show me movies like La Luna or whatever, and maybe some more like, and I think you probably got
like the canon of art film type shit. Yeah,
you went on the
Harmony Korine.
Who was a great... Korine was like Cobain.
Right.
Where it's like you read the Cobain thing notebook and you find out about
whatever
raincoats. And you find out about even Aerosmith is cool. You find out, but then... And then I think Korine was like that. And so, I'm not going to watch a 4-hour movie about like some weird incestual,
Right.
But you would show it to me and I would be happy that I did it.
Yeah, totally.
But I have slightly different taste generally, which I'll let you.
Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting. I think it's like if I like to name things, I don't know what the name would be, but it's not like you just like romantic comedies, although you do like romantic comedies. I feel like there's a kind of taste that's unnameable of films that you like.
I agree.
Is there like, do you have like some written down?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, this is your top 10 or whatever.
I'll pull a couple up and I'll just start saying them.
Yeah.
I'll just start saying them. I'll say, I would say The Accidental Tourist is a big one for me. I would say Hope Floats. I would say...
Wedding Crashers?
Wedding Crashers. This is a tip of my tongue. Yeah. And, Wedding Crashers is one that people might not be fully in tune with. And also, there might be some, like,
naysayer.
And, they're going, they're lying in order to bed a woman, but... I think Wedding Crashers is... I would say that is... It's a movie I've seen the most in my entire life. And
it was like a go-to... I mean, I love that movie, too. It was like a go-to movie. And I think there's much to be said that really it's like this relationship between these two guys that are at like the top of their game in terms of like being a comedy team, whatever you want to call it.
Dude, I just had a real thought.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this should be brought up. So... Essentially, the part in Wedding Crashers where, I guess it's Vince that's kind of chilling on it. And Owen that still wants to go.
Right.
Is that right? Or the roles reverse is why I say that. But it reminds me of when you broke Edge.
Oh, right.
Okay. So this is a funny thing. Rusty and I were like the last straight edge people
alive.
Right. And we were both cool straight edge people.
Right,
we were both at parties. We were both hanging out.
Yeah,
it was not a, we were fun people. But when Rusty broke Edge before I did, and
a couple years.
Yeah, and I was mad. And I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad at any of my other friends for breaking Edge. I was mad because I was like, we had this like
thing,
Avatar soul bond,
right,
and then it's like now I'm the only motherfucker, especially that will go to a party. Like I have other straight edge friends, they won't go outside,
right,
and I was like, oh my god. He's gonna
totally.
fuck it, and that's what I was mad
you can connect. You can connect that. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a film about friendship.
But this is the part where Vince goes over to Owen's house after he's been forsaken, and he's like, you haven't been answering my calls. This is Vince on it.
Yeah.
And Owen has a book on his little like end table. It's like, don't kill yourself. Don't jump or something.
Right.
And he's like. Vince is like, Owen's, Vince asked him to be his best man. Is what. At first they get down, and he's like, "What's this book?"
Right.
And, and then Vince is like, "What should be my best man? I'm getting married."
Yeah.
And throws him out.
Right.
And but anyways, that moment makes me recall this funny edge break moment because I was just like, I'm fully alone now.
Oh yeah. Well,
I didn't last that much longer. Guys.
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry to tell you.
By the way, I mean I think there's a reason I was probably straight edge. Side note, genetically probably predisposed. But like, it's just also interesting. One thing about the edge break though is the world we live in is so weird. Like I remember I broke edge and like Posy Rich, shout out Posy Rich, this Austin dude, on this Texas hardcore board was like, I heard Rusty broke edge.
Publicized.
And I think you called me like, I saw this on the Texas hardcore board.
No, that's not how I found that.
Well, okay. Well, maybe someone else. Maybe it was someone else. But it's funny to think it was like publicized.
Oh no! Somebody texted me. I remember you were like Mike.
Oh, it was like in the moment.
Oh happening. Yeah. Oh, I knew in the moment.
It's also funny to think about like
boiling at home.
It's funny to think about like before I broke edge because this is like 2007. I remember I was driving from Austin to San Antonio because I briefly went to college in San Antonio, and I was really tired, and I didn't usually. I was caffeine edge, and I was like,
yeah, Rusty didn't even drink caffeine.
Yeah, I was like, I'm so tired, and so I drank a Monster. But the way I did it was, I remember I went to a gas station, got a Monster, walked into the parking lot, and like was like chugging it like a movie where it's like, that's it, I don't fucking anyway.
I know what you mean. Those driving moments where I remember you would talk about having to scream or slap yourself away.
Yeah. I had to do that the other day. Lately, because I'm really bad with the road hypnotizes me basically. Like it feels calming. I want to fall asleep.
My buddy Will Boone, I think he made an art show about it.
Oh, really?
Called Highway Hex.
Well, I like literally
I feel you.
To stay awake lately. I've been having to put my lips in a weird formation, and no one can see me do this, but I'll be like, oh. Anyway, I'll keep me awake.
I was watching.
But yeah. Okay.
So that's funny. I'll say. Here's the thing to say is that my driving that I've got going on now, I've got it going from my St. Louis to Atlanta trips.
Oh, whoa.
Because that's like an 8-hour-ish trip, 7 to 9, and I was never willing to let anybody else really
drive. Wait, did you have issues with staying awake?
Oh no! I was just that's kind of a long drive. Do it round trip, and sometimes it would just be the weekend. But my point is, I would never let anybody else drive, so I would have to do it every time.
Fuck.
But yeah, staying awake, also just the hypnosis, even more than a sleepiness.
Yeah. It's weird.
But that's where I've trained myself to be like.
Hard about it? Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I
don't know if the Atlanta stuff's worth talking about.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about this. We can start it like that. We have an amazing story where Charlie and I got to see Kanye West.
Oh, this is great. We should talk about this.
So early on.
Yeah, we saw Kanye on his first national tour, I believe. And it was, he only had College Dropout out. You go ahead.
No, yeah, he opened for Usher in 2005, maybe.
Totally, who we also loved.
Yeah,
I mean, because Usher at that point was on his Confessions tour.
It was insane.
Rusty and I think we've always had shared loves of like kind of, not transgressive necessarily, but just, kind of like, the darker parts of culture.
But we love pop music.
Definitely love pop. And I'm saying we're novel. I'm not saying this is some, other people do this, but,
right.
That was something we bonded over.
Oh, yeah, totally. I mean, it's still always fun to like I'll play like a Hillary Duff song with people in a car, and they're like, "What?"
Anyway, Evil Mommy.
Yeah.
But we were into Kanye early, and we loved the song "Slow Jams" featuring Jamie Foxx, which I think made Jamie's career musically.
Right.
And he said so. But we loved that song. We loved this early Kanye, and then he was opening for Usher. And I think, even though I grew up on 8701 and the OG Usher, that You Got It Bad,
right.
More of the 90s
classic era, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, like Boxers Up to Here.
Right.
But that Confessions, Let It Burn, Burn Part 2, all that, Confessions Part 2 and Let It Burn, that was like, I think we recognized as somebody having their moment.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was insane.
You and I both knew. We were like, okay, Usher is having a fucking moment here.
Yeah.
And I think we felt the same way about Kanye.
Right.
And so Kanye was opening for Usher on that tour. And I remember I got the tickets. I remember we were in a very far back row.
Yeah.
At a Houston. It might have been at the Summit.
Giant.
Which is now, I think, Lakewood Church.
Oh, shit.
The Osteen Church.
Oh, that makes sense.
I think that's where we saw it. And, yeah. Where I've also seen, like, Hakeem Olajuwon.
Right.
But we're in a very far back row. And Kanye basically erupts in popularity on this tour. And so he still has like a 30-minute set allotted. But people go fucking nuts, right?
Right.
And that was very cool. But then Usher really crushed that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the thing.
It's weird.
It's crazy to think, like, we saw Kanye where they were basically like, you have no budget.
Yeah,
you have to literally
you're
play
out in
against
sweater
nothing.
Nothing. Usher's got pyrotechnics,
like
couches.
multiple stages with an elevator and
totally.
shit. That was the thing. It was like we saw Kanye where he literally just had a DJ playing a backtrack, and
what a credit to Kanye that he made the fucking most out of that.
And then there's the story also where after the show you tried to get merch.
Oh, this is a funny.
And you're like, do you have any mediums?
Medium
and the guy just laughed at
They
you.
laughed. I got no words back, just laughter.
And
just laughter.
But I think you still bought a shirt.
I think I did. I think I did. I also once bought a Ghostface shirt from Ghostface.
Oh shit!
When he played at South by, and I think it got lost. But it was a promo shirt with a tour date or with a release date on the back, and he was just hawking them off the front.
Damn, he's like a true head.
It's a great look.
Well, okay, so I think that's a whole thing of like you had some years.
Yeah,
what would you define them as?
I can tie this my Atlanta years.
Yeah.
And so I think I can tie this into the Kanye part because, and I would like to say, a gracious and beyond. So a real dear friend of mine that it's like I feel so close to this person. We haven't talked in a while that he's like one of us. So,
right.
But a French producer named Brodinski, basically. We linked up because of our mutual love of Atlanta rap, and I had already been doing this Atlanta rap and YouTube thing, and
where you like post tracks that you like
right.
and stuff,
and that were not already posted,
right?
And by virtue of the first 12 I posted, then I would just talk to the guys,
right?
So I found this song, and I don't know what year this was. It was probably like 2014 or something. Mm-hmm. I find this song with Young Thug on it, and I found a song with this guy Ola Playa I like on it, 2 different songs, and I'm like. From this guy named Young Stebo, big shout out Young Stebo. But I'm like, I contact him and I'm like, can I put this on YouTube? He's in, fuck it. And so then after I post those, these guys kind of just start sending me their songs. And so by the time I moved to St. Louis, I'm getting kind of working on that and I'm writing about this stuff as well. And I kind of link up with this guy Brodinski who produced on Kanye West, Jesus, on Black Skin Head and on another song, and he's a really incredible French techno producer. But what's notable here is that he already knew more famous people than
right.
He was fine, but he kind of saw the way I wrote about stuff. I remember journalistically the thing I'm most proud of that I've ever done. And I would encourage anybody still listening at this moment to go check it out. Is that my interview with Ola Playa? Mm-hmm. If you just search drug money, Ola Playa interview, but he saw that, and he saw that I had transcribed it with every like.
Oh shit!
And every man.
Right, which you're not supposed to do, I guess.
But I don't know. But he saw the exactitude. He saw the meticulous.
Oh, right.
Where I'm like. No, I think everything counts.
Right,
and I
totally.
think I speak colloquially too. I'm trying to do good right now, but right now, but I understand. So I think that stuff matters, and I went crazy, and I even sent R.I.P. His manager was this guy named B.R. Blood Rich Gang Slim, and this dude was one of the coolest guys on earth. Totally respected in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Cool, blood guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's dead. I can say that.
Right.
But he was a really neat guy, and he understood where I was coming from the jump.
Right.
He arranged the interview. He arranged the vinyl, which I still hope to produce, and he's like, he just got it, and that guy died. His wife killed him, stabbed him in the heart.
Oh my God.
And I was over there the night before, 2 nights,
Whoa.
one or 2 nights before, and she made dinner. She made salmon. I ate it. I still
Whoa.
worry to this day. I'm like cursed by
Whoa.
it, but. He passed, and he was.
Did she go to jail? Side note.
No, I think she claimed it was a self-defense,
right.
but I'll go on the record saying that's not.
You
the
didn't
case.
see
This is
anything.
a gentle soul. No. Everyone knew she was the wild one, but anyways. So I make all these relationships, but just by virtue of like, okay, I'm posting your songs for free, and I always showed to people I was like, I have no ads. To this day, I have no ads, and what
Right.
millions and millions of views, but I was like, because I never wanted money to enter the picture,
Right,
because I wanted it to just
becomes
be
so complicated
exactly
when that happens.
we're dealing with 1,000 people, just 5 people a song sometimes,
Right.
So I was just like, no, we're never gonna do that. We're gonna do this all for the and
for the promo.
a couple of these guys are pretty big now. I would say,
yeah,
if anybody wants to listen to Slime Life Shoddy,
mm-hmm.
that's a really, I'd say that's a really great.
Were you like basically like had put these tracks before these people were big at all?
Right, and it started with Young Thug, Friends, and then the first big substantive tape I made there with my friend Brodinski was Young Slime Season, and which features some famous rappers now like Slime Life Shoddy and this guy named Lil Got It, and all kinds of people. But it was basically just like, experimental beats from these European producers, and then kids that are so eager to rap that it's just like, let's fucking go.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really cool stuff, I think.
Hell yeah. Hold on, give me 1 second. I think the dog's out.
I love Una.
All right, cool.
Well, yeah, so the Atlanta time for me was...
Well, so say what you did. So you had a thing called Drug Money Records
Drug Money
that
USA.
was essentially a promotional...
Sure.
Slash...
Yeah, and I guess for me it was mostly just like, I saw these people that were not quite on,
mm-hmm.
but were, friends with these other people.
And it's because you love music, you love
music.
rap.
No,
right?
no, I'm like, these people need their own songs.
Right.
And so, so I was in law school at the time, and I was like, all right, I just gotta go do this, I guess. And so I spent a lot of time in Atlanta, and I...
Were you when you go to Atlanta? Is it during the school year still? Like, are you?
So I remember.
Trying to,
I
juggle
remember.
shit?
I remember it was me and my friend R.I.P. Christo, who was a graffiti guy from St. Louis, and I love this guy. So we were chilling and we were having a great day,
uh-huh.
and it was like we had a whole plan. We were gonna have this great night, and then my friend Guccio texted me. Guccio is this guy. He's free now. He's in St. Louis, and he's just like big boss man.
Uh-huh.
Right, and I had linked up with him because he was managing local rappers, but also this guy Yaki, who's one of my favorite rappers ever from Atlanta, and so he understood where I was coming from,
uh-huh.
And he even understood my anti-capitalist approach. But
right.
he was like, he would always bother me about going to Atlanta, and when he linked up with Yaki, I was like, oh my god. So this is a rapper that has songs with all of your favorite rappers, Thug, Future, blah blah blah. This is a really Oakland City, very like, anyone from Atlanta knows this guy, and I think, to me, I think he's one of the best rappers ever. So when that happened, he was like, you should just come the fuck down,
mm-hmm.
come down to Atlanta. And I was like, I'm in school, I hate it, blah blah blah, and I was always broke, whatever.
Right.
And one time he calls me and he's like, let's go to Atlanta. You said that if I called you and I could make it work for you, we can go.
Right.
And I was like, okay, because I'm, nothing.
right.
When I was $5 or whatever.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, I got you. Right. Literally, so, my lunches, blah, blah, blah. I was like, and again, that's how cool some people on Earth are.
Right.
These guys not getting anything back from me other than, like, residual because I love Yaki.
Right.
But no, he's really just doing this. He sees a guy doing a cool thing.
Right.
Sees my intentions are honest, which is something I've always relied on
right.
in my kind of interactions there. It's like that's the premise of my approach with the rap stuff is like,
because I'm sure there's plenty of like white fucking outsiders
hustlers
that are like
yeah,
filling people's heads up with bullshit, and people can see it from a mile away.
Exactly.
They're like, LOL.
I promise nothing.
Right.
And then I'm like, but I can promise you studio time and an audience.
Right.
And proper presentation.
Right.
And so, you know, the first time I went down there, so he says, all right, I got you. Mm-hmm. So I go. And I get there, and within, I drive all night. I drive their car. And
how long does it take to go from St. Louis?
It's like a 7 to 9 hour drive, and I hate driving. Before, you know, ostensibly I hate driving, but we go down there, we get in. You know when you drive late at night and you get in super early in the morning.
Yeah.
Right, and it's that weird moment where you still have the adrenaline from all that, and I don't think I even posted anything, and within. This is 2014, 15. This is an Instagram era. But within 30 minutes, I get a phone call from an Atlanta phone number. Mm-hmm. And it's this guy, Bloody J, who's on par. You know, that's one of my 5 favorite rappers of all time. Mm-hmm. And I'm not, hey, everybody out there. You know, I listen to rap critically, but I'm also open to new stuff. I think Bloody J is in my top 5. And I get a call. And it sounds like him, and I was like, what's up? You know, and he's like, reveals who it is. I'm like, oh my God. You know, and he's like, all right, we're starting to make plans. I think it was a Sunday night or Sunday morning, whatever it was. And I'm like, what are you up to on Tuesday? Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, well, what are you up to right now? And I was like, all right, for sure. Yeah, I was like, what? And so somebody else there had a car. And it was a St. Louis guy and gal. And we go down, and it was in Atlanta. It was in Mechanicsville, and we drive down to Mechanicsville. The place we were staying was this kind of like McMansion out in Gwinnett, which is where Migos are from, kind of a suburb. It's dope, you know, chill place. But then we go to Mechanicsville, a little wilder, and we get down there, and I call Bloody J, and his phone's dead.
Oh shit!
Right, but we're outside of this, like I would say, 40 unit complex.
So it's like you don't know where.
There was one apartment that was popping, like lights on. They're listening to rap.
Right.
Right, and the 2 people I was with, who I would say are a little more suited for the situation, were like, nope. And I was
like, no, we're not just gonna.
Not gonna just go knock. I was like, no, I drove down here. Like,
because was it basically like, fuck it, I guess we'll leave situation?
Like I'm not right, exactly. And I'm like, here I am, basically renouncing this great pursuit
of school
stuff. Right? And then I'm like, I'm going. Right, and this is my guy.
I'm not gonna do 1 foot in, 1 foot out. This is not bullshit.
It. And I knock, and literally 2 sticks point out at me. 2 long guns. And
no, or seriously?
Oh yeah, right out of the crack of the door, and I stood up on my tippy toes because I could see Jay's silhouette behind these people, and I was like, Jay, and yeah, and he's like, nah, that's Charlie or whatever, and I was like, oh, phew, and then I wave up the other 2 people. That part's funny because one of them said Kraken and got reprimanded, and not in a bad way. I think Jay was just like, you can't say that.
Right. Wait, what?
It's a Crip.
Oh, right,
yeah.
Right.
And so we're all there, and I remember asking questions. I remember being like, hey, Jay, what's your there's some great footage of him like kind of singing on the couch, but I was like, what's your favorite like non rap music? And I remember he said The Doors, which is not my favorite project, yeah. But I love that he loves. And I remember, so Jay, love this. There's no way he'll hear this, but big shout out, Bloody Jay. And when he got out of prison recently, he, I saw him again. Also shout out Brodinski. It was, we released a project called Drug Money Worldwide when Mason did the art for, and I went to Atlanta for that, and they had a studio session. It was great to see him again, and I was wearing a George Strait shirt that Scott gave me, and I was like, and he was like, "Oh, who's that?" And I was like, "Oh, it's George Strait. He's like the king of Texas, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, "Oh, country artists. They're like the best songwriters." And I was like, "Oh my god,
hell yeah!"
Lil DJ's talking my language.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Well, how many times did you go out there?
So the first time, that's a funny thing, is that, you know, I had not accepted that I was actually, you know, taking a minute from whatever I was doing, and I was like, Gucci, how long are we gonna be there? You know? And he was like, oh, at least a week. I was like, a week? Oh my god. And I was like, all right, I think I can make it work. And then a week came, and he was like, I'm going back, and I was like, I'm good.
And, so you stayed?
Oh, I stayed because so that was essentially the point. Is I get there, and within a few hours, Buddy J calls me, and then the next day, I have this friend, and I'm lucky to call him a friend, but his name is Paper Trail 550. He's a rapper, and he's an incredible rapper from Atlanta. He went away during kind of his prime, or not his prime, during most people's prime,
mm-hmm.
and then came back, and really, you know, I would release his songs, I would put them on YouTube, and when I got there, I was like, oh, let's fucking go. And he was like, do you want to go to Future Studio? It's called the Bat Cave.
Uh-huh.
Future Studio is called the Bat Cave. And he's like, do you want to go to the Bat Cave? And I was like, oh. I had been there again. I had slept for like an hour. And I was like, holy fuck. And I was like, of course I want to go to the Bat Cave. So he grabs me, and we go to Future Studio. And we go in, or, you know, you have to get let in. And, you know, I released a mixtape with Future's brother named Casino. So Casino and Paper Trail 550.
Uh-huh.
But 550 is my homie who's taking me. And we're with somebody else. It might have been Black Migo, Sunny, someone like that. But we go to Future Studio. So I literally have been there for 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, I'm at Future Studio. You know, this is my path. I'm choosing the right path in life. And this is kind of a funny story. First of all, I remember playing ping pong with Casino and 550, but then Future is recording, and I'm watching Future record, and I'm crying, basically.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I'm like,
yeah.
I'm actually like,
this is, yeah.
I couldn't be more moved if I tried.
Yeah.
And I had this this camera that my friend Sean Balzell from St. Louis had mailed me, because he'd just seen,
mm-hmm.
I guess I'd been there like a day or two, because he overnighted it. And he overnights me his camera, pro camera, but I don't know how to work it yet, right? In low
it's
light.
Like one of those like DSLR.
It's DSLR, and right. I love it. It's an EOS something, but I just didn't know how to use it yet.
Yeah,
right, and so we get to the studio. Future's recording. I just feel blessed to watch Future record. Right, I'm like, this is all I need. It's just to watch. But I approach 550, and I'm like, hey, can I take a picture of Future? Are you in Future? And he leans over to Future, and Future is like, kind of weird. Shakes his head, and he comes over to me.
Yeah.
And he's like, hey, I'm just not dressed for it. Like, he's just wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I mean, I was like, I feel very privileged to be here. You know, I didn't say all that, but I tried to communicate with my cowering eyeballs. You know, I was like, hey, I mean, I'm excited to be here. And it's funny, you can see he thinks about it for like 30 seconds, a minute, goes out, comes back in with sunglasses on. He's like, yeah, you got it, man. You got it, man. But here's the funny part, though. I didn't know how to use a camera. So you're taking a picture in low light without an additional flash on top.
Right.
It just takes forever, right? And so it's like...
So everyone's like, what the fuck?
Future was like, you trying to take a video? You trying to take a video? And I was like, not that aggressive, I'm joking. But, you know, he was like, are you trying to take a video? I was like, no, I just don't know how to work this goddamn camera, man. Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. So,
yeah, the Atlanta chapter, huge, a million stories there, but, you know, really great, incredible, formative times of my life. And I really stand by all the work that I did with my friend Brodinski and all the rappers down there. Yeah.
Well, okay, so when did you came back to Austin in, like...
I'd say 2018?
Yeah.
Is that so right?
Was it just, like, you had done what you'd come to do, you
I think that was it.
I mean, anyway, we don't have to get too into it, but I think it's cool that it wasn't like some kind of careerist, like, I need to get to LA, get me, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. This, you
Maybe
know,
I ought to have.
Right.
But, I came back here and...
It's been a brutal, hellish couple of years for everyone.
Absolutely. And my friend that we talked about earlier in the band passed away.
Yeah.
So I've been making kind of black metal on my own. Very interesting. I was at Mitchell's yesterday.
Right.
And he kind of filled in the blanks on this song. That's really cool.
Well, I mean, it's interesting to think that, I don't know, in the end, the kind of spirit of DIY never ends.
Absolutely.
But, I don't know, I think in the future, one of the unnamed black metal band's records are going to come out, which is cool. One already came out. There's another one coming out.
Yeah.
Country Club, we got to do this triple LP box set plus a 7-inch. I don't know. It's just cool to be able to like have all these things that we worked on for many years come to fruition. People like them. It's sick.
Absolutely.
It's, I don't know. It's one thing that I think would be cool though. Before we end all this, is to talk about movies again.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. I mean, is there some? Yeah. You have a list with you.
I have a couple like lists, and none of them are as pointed as they need to be, but. Okay, so we talked about Wedding Crashers. So I would say, Hope Floats is a big movie for me.
Yeah.
Directed and I believe written also by Forrest Whitaker.
Really? Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Right. Isn't that interesting? And he's from Texas. And Jamie Foxx also from Texas to bring Slow Jams back in. And if anybody wants a cool tip, you should go watch Jamie Foxx cover George Strait in front of George Strait when he was receiving a CMT award.
Oh, shit.
And it's really interesting because he not only performs the song You Look So Good in Love, he performs it perfectly, but he also tells a story. He's from Tyrell, Texas.
Oh,
and he tells a story about going to see George Strait and not being let in because of the color of his skin.
Oh, my God.
And he tells George Strait in front of him, and then he just eats the song. But,
well, like, okay, back to Hope. I mean, I guess we're talking about Hope Floats. For people that don't know or weren't kids at a certain point in the 90s with romantic comedies, what's Hope Floats about?
So it's a romantic comedy drama basically about Sandra Bullock returning to her Texas hometown. It was filmed in Smithville, Texas. And she's returning to her town. She was the prom queen, but she comes back and she's been humbled by life. Her husband has forsaken her, and he's done it live on Ricky Lake, on the Ricky Lake show.
Oh.
And it has that's the opening scene is on the Ricky Lake show. Her best friend is running away with her husband. So she and her daughter Bernice, who is played by May, the woman, she's on Arrested Development, Parenthood.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So that's the daughter, Bernice, and so they she has to, move back into the hometown. She's humbled by that experience. She has to go to the unemployment office. She has to, she's dealing with
like have nothing, build it back up.
Totally. And people are like, you treated me like shit in high school. And she's like,
oh,
fuck, I didn't remember.
So it's like this complicated.
It is. It's a really dynamic, and I think that's what gets lost. And I'm obsessed with Roger Ebert.
Right.
We
all love Roger.
Sound like a teenage, but we love Roger, but he didn't like Hope Floats, and I wanted to argue with him. That's one point I always wanted to take up with him.
And one of the few movies he didn't like I love is Blue Velvet. Side note, there's always a couple.
Shout out Greg for showing me Blue Velvet.
Oh shit, I didn't. Yep. He did.
Absolute fact. That was one of the first 3 DVDs we owned, and also
when you're like a kid.
Yeah, or at that point,
like 13
DVD era, 12.
Oh, okay, so it wasn't
but also the one movie I wasn't allowed to watch growing up was Dead Ringers. It was the only movie.
Probably because it freaked him out so much or something.
And in retrospect, I get it fully.
No, keep going.
Yeah. But I don't know. So I like movies that are, again, I think we spoke to this earlier a little bit, where Rusty would show me crazier movies that I needed to see, or you're not even crazier, because sometimes it would be like a, I don't know, Fellini, something that either it doesn't have to be that risque, but some, things I wouldn't watch on my own.
Yeah.
And whereas I always had a taste for that, not just, and again, this is all shared taste.
Right.
You would show me the crazier stuff, and I feel like
Well, yeah, the other day you showed me this movie that I really liked. We watched it fully at the house. What movie was that?
Oh, please tell me.
Was the guy from, who's the brother from Eastbound and Down, I think was in it.
Was it Randy and the Mob? That's a movie I'm that Randy and the Mob, everybody is a movie that I think is really worth a watch.
Let me look it up. I think that might have been it.
It's with
Yes, that's what it was. Yes.
Okay, Randy and the Mob. So it has what's his name that was
Walton Goggins.
Who is one of the funniest people in the world. And then Ray McKinnon is the actor-director, and he plays twins.
Right.
And I think Burt Reynolds is in it, and it's one of the funniest character comedies I think you'll ever fucking see. And nobody really talks about it.
No, it's amazing. I mean, do you want to say what it's slightly about?
Yeah. So, Ray McKinnon's in financial trouble, falls in trouble with the mob, and he has a twin who's a gay man, and they're in a southern town, and Goggins shows up as the mob
like
kind
enforcer.
of enforcer, yeah. And I just think it's one of those movies that has the perfect blend of it feels like grounded comedy where it's like, you know, you feel emotionally tied to it, and even when there's absurdity, it doesn't take you out of that, you know? You still feel like you're right in there. And right?
I think it's a great example of the kind of movie we're talking about, which is like, it's not what you define as an art film, but it's a film that feels like a personal, funny film, like a country song that you just feel comes from somebody.
You know, because I haven't my issue with comedies is when you're just too removed from it. There's too much dissonance, and you're just making a joke.
Or it's just like a parody or something.
Yeah, you're just, right. You know, I need some emotional grounding. I need it to be
Airplane.
Right. You know, exactly. I can't do it if it's just gags.
Right.
You know, people of Step Brothers or something. I'm not mad at them, but I can do old school.
Right.
And that's largely because of Vince's grounding.
Yeah, totally.
Because I think Vince is such a really dynamic actor. And
and I think it also is interesting to say that I think a lot of the Will Ferrell classics are dying, like from the pop culture brain. And I'm not even saying like, oh, I never laughed once whenever I watched like Talladega Nights, but really...
I'll say this, though. For all of those movies, Will's parts are still the best.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like, yes, fucking...
I mean, John C. Reilly also...
John C. Reilly with Will Ferrell doing insane improv literally is just more like watching people do amazing.
It's less a movie
work,
than it is.
But it's like gluing together narratives so you can watch people do really funny improv.
Whereas, don't you think in Wedding Crashers they showcase Will in the most perfect way?
Oh yeah.
The most you know, where the mom, Meatloaf, etc.
Yeah.
Where he's there and he brings the dark.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
They use that in the greatest.
Let's be honest. Like Will Ferrell is at his best when he's this weird, absurd side character that just is like it's like a little taste that like in SNL when he's like the weird, like more cowboy guy or whatever. I don't know. You know. But I mean, it's just interesting because as a side note, like Will Ferrell, you know. The director Adam McKay that directed Talladega Nights and Anchorman and all that stuff, they had like a production company together.
G.G. Allen?
No, that's Todd Phillips.
That's Todd Phillips, gotcha.
But they had the production, basically Adam McKay directed like Talladega.
Oh, no, they had a falling out.
Yeah, and because, well, also it's funny though, Adam McKay directed like The Big Short and Vice, which are two of like, I think the most like smelling its own farts, like Big Short's okay. I don't know.
Big Short I only liked because I like learned about this thing I went through that I didn't know about. But but
those movies when you watch Vice, it's insane. It's like people talking to you like, don't you? Anyway, it's just funny because the new movie that just came out, it's like Leonardo DiCaprio movie where it's like fictionalized version of like an end of the world thing, but nobody's believing the scientists like. Anyway, everyone, including like leftist people on the left, are like saying this is like the most like snarky, like we, you know.
Okay, I've got some movies I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I want to talk about. So we talked about Crashers. I would say Near Dark is one of my favorite movies.
Oh yeah.
Let's get that out of the way. I think Cemetery Man.
Oh yeah. That's a great weird horror
right, and that the Rupert Everett aspect ties into my rom-com love because My Best Friend's Wedding was one of my first favorites, along with Notting Hill and Four Weddings.
Definitely.
I would say A Perfect World. I really like.
Oh man, I saw Perfect World as a kid. Like when first day it came out, wow. And it really blew my mind. Also, for people who don't know, Perfect World is a Clint Eastwood directed movie with what's the main
Costner.
Kevin Costner, and it's like a smaller film about like I might be getting this wrong because it's been so long, but like
it's like Badlands but with a son.
Yeah, like a guy who's like a criminal. Some shit goes. He like takes a hostage. It's this kid, and the kid and this criminal end up kind of becoming super close and like loving each other. And there's like a tragic ending. It's a really great
That's a great one.
That's a great example of the kind of movies you love, which are they're personal, smaller films.
Right.
Sometimes they get lost from America's consciousness because it isn't just like, oh, this is a Clint Eastwood movie or whatever.
And just I'll just even spitballing. I think Accidental Tourist. I think Big Night. I think like City Island. I think I'll say we always both loved Hoop Dreams, and then a funny movie to talk about. Not funny, but Stevie was a kind of a big movie for us both, right?
Oh yeah, so the guy that Steve James, who directed Hoop Dreams, which by the way, the what's his name, Ebert loves that movie. He was kind of like why the movie also blew up, because he pushed it a lot. It's also a movie about Chicago, and Ebert is from Chicago, Steve James is. But what's interesting is Steve James, he did direct a fictional, like a regular movie that didn't really blow up, knowing whatever, but the next movie he made that was a true documentary was a film called Stevie, which literally, if you were like, hey, what my follow-up to Hoop Dreams is gonna be? It's gonna be about like a kid that's a pedophile who grew up.
If you know about the little brother, little sister kind of program, so that was it. This was his little brother, whatever, and I don't remember where, but he
in like Southern Illinois.
And so then before that, after that, he goes off to college, and this guy has these terrible things that happen.
He basically, the filmmaker looks up what happened to this kid that he wanted to help, who was like a troubled youth.
Right.
And the dude is everything bad happened. The family fell apart. He became a pedophile. He's just not doing well. And the film just brutally looks at it, and it's about him trying to really... I don't know, the guy feels bad. He feels like he let this kid down, and the whole foster care system let this guy down. And it's a film that doesn't in any way try to like excuse the horrible thing this guy did, but it's a film that really, like, similar to how Hoop Dreams looks at like socioeconomic and racial backgrounds of Chicago and how youths try to exist through the world of basketball, but also a film that loves basketball truly.
Absolutely.
This is a film that really tries to honestly look at the system of foster care and adoption. It's an amazing movie.
And the accountability there is really impressive. Like, to look at yourself and
be like, did I let this kid down?
It's basically an anti-vanity project. He's
I mean, that's the thing, though. It's like if you were to say, like, well, everyone loved Hoop Dreams. It was like this amazing American documentary, and you're like, well, I'm going to follow it up.
There is that, like, I saw recently, there was that, I hadn't seen it before, Bell Hooks kind of criticism of Hoop Dreams. Yeah, I read it and I thought
I haven't read it, but is it valid? It's like a.
I saw where she was coming from, but I thought it was total bullshit.
What was it? Just like this is an exploitative piece that tries to like say like.
Which, in my opinion, that's tantamount to, without getting too controversial, I would say, it kind of when I saw that, it was which again just because she passed the other day, so I saw it. But it reminded me of kind of like when people blamed Kim and Kanye for their interactions with Trump as far as getting Alice Johnson, all these people freed in the First Step Act. Mm-hmm. People were like, oh, you're giving him a good PR moment. And you're like, no, what matters is these people.
These people got out of prison.
Exactly. Yeah. And the same way, like, the Steve James and it wasn't just Steve James, he had those other guys, and those families still get a residual, and there's a trust, and there's a scholarship, and it's a kind of beautiful thing. So I think
I think there has to be charitability. I think because to me the film is critical of the systems that are in place.
It absolutely is, because that one guy, original recruiter guy, gets roasted in it.
Yeah.
Right? He didn't like that fucking movie. The guy that originally draws Willie or whoever he.
I think it's just interesting because it's a film that makes people hopefully, I understand that in some circles maybe people view Hoop Dreams as a kind of like, isn't this a great story? But to me the film showcases these guys don't really make, it's a much more complex movie. But anyway, I think it's interesting to say like, well, what's your follow-up going to be? It's going to be like this totally brutal, one of the most bleak documentaries ever made, and it's like,
I discovered that movie
on video on demand.
Which it's funny because Rusty and I have both survived. We occupied a certain overlaying of eras, right? Like late '90s, early 2000s, and now beyond, and so we had VHS moments, but this was the moment where digital cable had entered the picture,
right?
And it was a blue select screen.
Well, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, my mom and your dad allowed video on demand to be ordered, which is a very privileged place to be, I'd say.
Sure.
And you'd be like, there's so many weird movies on video on demand.
Dude, it's just so...
I always tell people there's this French art film by Claire Denis called Trouble Every Day that Vincent Gallo's in, and it's literally like a vampire cannibal sex film, and I saw it on video on demand.
You clicked order $3.95.
Right, and
yeah.
I think literally it's like there was probably just some weird we bought the rights to this
distribution deal.
We're not gonna put this out on DVD. Fuck it, whatever.
Which is certainly why TV was in that mix. Like, how do you sell that documentary?
Well, right, and it's like here we go, and they unload it.
What Clint Eastwood movie were we talking about?
A Perfect World.
Perfect World. So, I think, to me, here's a movie that my father showed me that I think I'll put in my top 3 now is Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Oh yeah.
With Jeff Bridges and Clint, and it's a Michael Cimino movie, the same guy that did Deer Hunter and did
Heaven's Gate,
and did
those are the 2 big ones.
No, he did a cool movie with Mickey Rourke called Year of the Dragon.
Oh yeah, of course.
But Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, I think, is basically like a Wedding Crashers vibe,
right?
As far as and also Scarecrow vibe with Pacino.
Yeah.
And who's the other guy in that? Not Pacino.
See, these are movies that if I've seen them in passing.
Right. I latch on to these friendship movies. So Fandango, that's a big one for me too. That's a UT Kevin Costner movie where their friend dies and they go to bury him in Mexico, or they spread his ashes in Mexico. And they're a UT graduating class. It's a cool ass, awesome movie that I don't think people have really figured out. But the other person in Scarecrow, it's please look it up, bro.
Oh yeah, sure. I'm sorry.
No.
Originally, Charlie and I wanted to do a podcast where basically we watch these films, and someday we'll do another one.
It's a good idea because I think our premise was that we were going to recommend each other the movies.
Yeah, maybe we'll do some episodes.
We should, because one you pick, one me pick.
Yeah.
That's how
Gene Hackman.
Gene Hackman's who it is. I think Going South is on my list. That Jack Nicholson movie.
Tell people, what's that one about? I don't think I've seen that.
It's kind of just about a couple going crazy, but in the Old West, kind of. And it's Nicholson. I forget who the woman is. Oh, I could talk about my recent Shelley Duvall encounter too.
Oh yeah, wait, where did you told me about it? But
so I saw Shelley Duvall at this barbecue place. In the Hill Country, and I guess the town she lives in, she kind of just zips around. She doesn't really go into places, but just kind of people bring her the stuff out.
Right.
And not in a diva way, but that's
just the vibe. Yeah, she has some issues.
If you think about it,
well, any older person.
That's
should
what
have
I'm
that
saying.
as
my grandma would probably want that shit.
Yeah, totally.
So I don't. So she pulls up, and my friend Will has gone to the post office, and I'm looking down at my food, and I hear someone holler at me, and it's her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, and I was like, I think she wanted some food. She didn't communicate that to me necessarily. My friend Will's walking back to the post office. She's asking me what I ate, or I asked her what she ate, something like that. And it wound up with, I was like, oh, I'm eating. I was like, here's what happened. I was like, what are you ordering? She was like, oh, I haven't ordered yet. I got to send somebody in there. I was like, okay.
Oh.
And then I was like, she was like, what'd you get? I was like, I got brisket. She was like, what part of the cow is that? And I was like, I don't know what fucking part of the cow the brisket is. I was like, what?
Good question.
Yeah, fantastic question. And then at that exact moment, Will walks outside, and I was like, Will, what part of the cow is brisket? And he's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, why are y'all eating it?
What? And, yeah, that's good.
She was funny, right? And then she was like, I guess that place used to be an old barbecue place. She was like, I was here 30 years ago. She was like, I got a brisket, and it looked like an accordion. And she just stretched it out like this.
Yeah, that's not a good sign.
No. So, yeah, right, exactly, for the meat.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just a moment where I was like, okay, if anybody ever thought she was
crazy,
wild. No, she's funny, quirky, and just like being cool.
No, that's Texas. That's like the best version of Texas.
Exactly, and that's why if anybody's asked when I've told the story, they're like, "How'd she seem?" I'm like, dude, if that was like someone you knew in real life, you would be like, they're the best.
Yeah.
You just thought they were fun.
Yeah.
But then she was like, what do you do? What do y'all do? What? Yeah, and Will was like, reluctantly, probably was like, I'm an artist. Yeah. You know, and Will graciously was like, and this is my attorney. And she looked at me and she's like, you don't look like an attorney.
Hell yeah. I was also thinking about like other smaller movies. Have you ever seen Fat City with Jeff Bridges?
I've never finished it. And I'm a Bridges freak.
But see, that's a movie where it goes more from like an American kind of, art film type thing. It's a good...
Because I have other Bridges movies I'm really...
Stacy Keach is in it, who's always plays kind of like he plays the like racist dude in American History X, like the old guy, the
Metzger.
Clearly Metzger guy. Yeah. Side note.
Oh, Keach is one of the best.
Yeah. It's so funny to watch. Like, I watched some clips from American History X the other day where it's just like...
I have to say something.
Yeah.
I've always had this idea for an American History X. When you watch it and you see the basketball part...
Right.
The whites against the blacks part. It's like the only part of that movie where they show respect to another race.
Right.
So I've always thought that there should just be an American History X basketball competition movie.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Don't you think?
Side note, I don't know if you know this, but the guy directed American History X tried to take his name off of it.
Nut job.
Well, I love that guy because he
directed
this documentary about abortion called Lake of Fire. That's like the best documentary about abortion ever made. But
I've never seen it.
It's like really seriously.
I've looked up. He's been trying to make this movie about a submarine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, but it's just interesting because it's like they openly admit they let Edward Norton edit the film, which whatever, I guess.
Yeah, let the actor do
But
it.
I think it's just interesting to think about like Edward Norton as like, he was like he grew as a leading man through the '90s, and then he kind of does his own thing anyway. Yeah. Whatever. He was replaced as the Hulk. Side note. And then it's just, I mean, American History X is like a meme film as a side note. Just we need.
Honestly, though, I think Furlong was such a great young performer.
Oh yeah. I mean, he was a Terminator 2 side note like.
Oh yeah, that was probably a big influence. I mean, I think Rusty. I think you literally had the haircut.
Well, yeah, I loved Terminator 2 so much I wanted that kid's haircut, which there's probably other people telling that story because
no, it doesn't have to be unique to be special. But
yeah. You
had it right, and so I never had the haircut, but I do remember watching him, rob an ATM / arcade and then flee on like, a scooter or a motorcycle with like a Public Enemy shirt through the LA River, and thought, okay, this is the coolest kid alive.
With Buttnick from Salute Your Shorts.
Yeah, my first memories are watching Terminator 1 and 2. When my mom was still alive, like when she would leave, my dad and I would pop it on, even for like 5 minutes. Yeah, just to be like, oh, let's do it.
Is there any other films that... I mean, do you have a film that you think is like, your top, like a movie you can always watch? As I guess Wedding Crashers. Is there like, for me, it would be like Capturing the Freedmans.
Oh wow, we used to love that. Do you remember watching that movie at Sam's house?
Yeah. It's funny. Capturing the Freedmans is like a kind of precursor to like Serial or something. Where
right. Documentary, true crime obsession.
For people that don't know, Capturing the Freedmans deals with a family who the father was caught with child porn, of course.
And he taught a child's computer class.
Yeah, and the kids, it was kind of McMartin era hysteria. People said maybe he had touched the kids, but there's no proof of it. And it's a weird movie because it's like, this guy is a piece of shit. He is a pedophile, but looks like his son, who got roped into the case, was innocent. So it's like, does the innocence of somebody that's guilty of something else matter? And it's a really interesting case, but the DVD of it, and this is like 2004, so had like an entire part that was like interviews and more information that was very much like a precursor to like what we would define as like Serial or other true crime things that are like zeitgeisty. Anyway, just as a side note, but that's
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, so I was gonna. We already talked about Thunderbolt and Lightfoot.
Yeah.
I would say. Oh, we're gonna edit this part.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a movie that.
I'm trying to think of my other. Oh, I think I really like River Phoenix movies specifically. I think I Love You to Death is the one that I just thought about as far as falling into that category, because that's a movie with Kevin Kline and.
So really, it's not necessarily about like watching a movie. It's about, I think what's interesting is you love archaeology and finding movies. Like, Absolutely. How do you go and find a lot of these weird movies that people don't talk about?
That's a great question.
Is it like following actors or directors?
Definitely, it's an IMDb situation.
Yeah.
And I had a whole year where I swore off IMDb, and this was a long time ago. This before people were like looking at their screen time. I was probably 2008, 2009, but I was like, I realized that every argument I had, or not argument, but query was like, what other movie were they in?
Oh.
And so I took a whole year off-ish from IMDb just so I could solve that in a more like...
What, like, I'm not going to just, I'm going to watch the film?
We're going to if you're like, what other movie were they in? You have to hack it up.
Oh, whoa. It's like because that's like the joke of like, if you watch Seinfeld, someone's like, who played blah, blah, blah in a movie? And they actually had to like argue about it, whereas... our generation just Googles it, and there's nothing fun about that, really. Like, you want to bet who, like, played, Willow in Willow? And then, like, oh, yeah, it was this guy who played the Ewok or whatever.
I would say...
Rick Davis.
And I would say other movies. I would say I really love City Island. That guy.
Wait, what's that?
This guy made City Island. Just a movie about, like, a family.
Mm-hmm.
And he made a movie called... Two Family House probably, and I guess I really love a human story, emotionally grounded.
Yeah, totally.
Comedy story.
Well, hell yeah! I'm trying to think about.
That's so imprecise.
What else? Well, no, I mean, I think that's what's hard sometimes to like define a genre or something. But human, personal stories that contain that at times can be funny, but also like tender and
yes.
It's also interesting because it's like I think we can all watch horror movies, but I think it's interesting like there's there's like the nostalgia for like horror, which isn't a surprise, is like this giant thing that exists in the world, and I think it's interesting that like people like us that love like subcultures of like black metal or noise or whatever, we aren't necessarily like going to horror conventions, guys. Right. I mean, I made a Texas Chainsaw Massacre shirt the other day.
We
I love
horror, but that's
classics.
Not our exclusive.
But it's hard for me, honestly, as a side note, to like people will be like, watch this film on VHS, and I have friends that love that shit. No hatred to that. It's just what works for you doesn't work for me sometimes.
The campy movie sometimes.
Where I'll watch a movie, I'm like, this is just a bad movie. Which, granted, I'm sure someone could watch a movie I love and be like, this is just a boring, shitty movie. Right. So whatever. But it's funny to think about like. I'm sure...
Yeah, I mean, there's not a subculture for Randy and the Mob.
Yeah.
There's not, like, a cult force. There's not a cult push to say, like, everybody should watch Randy and the Mob.
Yeah. Although fact, maybe that should
I believe you could Google... I mean, I'm not saying I'm a special guy, but I think you could Google and not find a result for a real critical review of Randy and the Mob. I think that's one of the funniest movies.
So, well, there you go. We need to, like... Maybe we could do a thing where we talk deeper about a couple of these films.
I think that would be cool. And anybody listening, I would say... Watch Randy and the Mob.
No, it's amazing.
Crack up.
Yeah. I think maybe it's cool that we didn't talk too deeply about black metal because, keep it sacred.
Sure, we could get in there, but yeah.
I mean, all I can say is I think, once I read an interview with someone that said, like, I don't want to mention exact bands because I think that's good sometimes.
I think that's the way to play it.
Too much of... Hey, I'm on Instagram. My label does plenty of stuff on Instagram, but sometimes we all have to create a line. Anyway, I guess I'm trying. One thing we didn't talk about, we're wrapping this up. It's funny to think about like touring. Total Abuse went on many American tours. There's all kind of
right. I think I went on all but one or two.
Yeah, like hijinks that occurred. I mean, I guess in the end it was always just like brutal, hellish, funny times. Is there any?
I've got my favorite.
Yeah. Probably. Okay. What is it?
And my favorite's probably from a latter day. It was probably from maybe the last one that I was on.
In like 2014.
Yeah, and it was at a club called, was it called? And let me specifically call out, I think the bartender's name was
yeah.
And so Total Abuse is playing the gig, and I was DJing, as shout out my friends for letting me, play my rap songs before or whatever. And this guy comes over as I'm playing a Future song, and let me paint the picture. It's underground, basement, fog, lasers. It's not like I'm bucking, it's not like I'm like going against.
It's a goth night, ostensibly.
But I was like, how cool is it? I'll play Future, Turn on the Lights, and this is back then, it was a new song, and it's, it's an underground, it felt right, and I looked at, the dance floor.
And keep in mind, on the tour, you were billed as our DJ. You were DJing shows.
It was billed, and we did that every night, and I give him 20 seconds of this song, this guy, he comes up to, the booth, and he's like, no, this is not happening here tonight. And I was like, what is not happening here? And I really was confused. I was like, it's going over well, like,
It fits.
We're in this laser fog zone. Turn on the light. I'm looking for... And I was confused, and not confused because I saw where it was coming from, but I was confused on the inner level, and I was like, all right, no. He was like, unplug it. I was like, no. I was like, you're the angry guy. I was like, you unplug it, angry guy. And I'm already like, few free drinks in. I was like, fuck it. You go. And he's like, no. And I was like,
you unplug the rap.
Yeah, you unplug the rap. And I made him say it too. He was like, play what? I was like, what do you want? Not
you can't play
black music? And so he unplugs it. And the girl who was playing, she was super cool, but she was playing Macro Nympha. And I love Macro Nympha.
Yeah.
For the audience. I love Macro Nympha. But listen, I'm out on a Saturday night. I just don't know if that's what I'm...
Right. If we're gonna say a club can play Macro Nympha, which literally has no rhythm or beats, but can't play Futures. Insane.
And I saw it on our virtual DJ. I saw it, and I was like, I approve of your decision, but I'm like,
the hypocrisy.
Why can I not play a goddamn rap song? So.
Okay, well, I think it's a good story to end on.
That's a good one to end on.
Charlie will be back. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, man.
All right. Take it easy. Good night. See ya.